Welcome to Love Talk. My name is Gregory Morgan. Thank you for tuning in. I'm really here to take your questions and answer your calls. I'm going to share with you some information at the beginning of the show. And what we talk about here is all of the various dimensions of love and relationships, not only what's working and what works in relationships, but we'll give you a chance to talk about those things that aren't working in your relationship, give you some insights, tips, techniques for being able to guide yourself through one of the most difficult and challenging aspects of being a human, and that is our relationship with other human beings. And it truly all begins with our relationship with ourselves, with our body, with our own sense of identity. Our soul expands out into our relationships with our parents, our siblings, when early in life the other children or the peers in your life, brothers and sisters and friends, and then later in life, erotic relationships that involve sexuality. And it is usually at that point in relationships that we begin to have major breakdowns or breakthroughs in relationship to the person of opposite sex or same sex if you're in that kind of a relationship. But either way, once relationships involve some form of sexuality, then there's going to be brought up all the old unresolved issues from all of your previous relationships, which were basically the basis or foundation for how you relate to yourself and how you relate to other human beings. The thing I wanted to discuss with you today, that we all have something that we share in common. I'll get to that in a minute. And what we share in common creates an atmosphere or a belief system that we have all inherited without even knowing that it's there or even knowing what it is, without giving it a name. We see people who are in relationship with each other, and it's as if their life has been drained out of them. It's as if they present to their own power and possibility in their life, and then we get in relationships with someone else who is in exactly the same state, and ultimately those relationships never go forward because we are attempting to get from someone else something that we've never been able to find in ourselves, and that is true happiness and independence and the ability to ongoingly regenerate ourselves as a happy, hopeful, helpful, wise, and ever-strengthening human being. If you've probably noticed that people start off strong and tend to end up weak. That's true in relationships, it's true in your education, it's true in life. So many things start off strong and end up weak. And what I'm interested in is giving you the ability to start off strong, and when you hit something in the road that is a disappointment or a loss for you, that you're able to pick yourself up and find a way to regenerate yourself newly and be as powerful and as resourceful as you ever were. So there's a call that's coming in already, so I'm going to go ahead and take that call, and then I'll get to the subject that we're talking about today. Hello, this is Gregory. You are live on the air.
Good morning. I say good morning because it's from Australia.
Hello in Australia. Wow.
Well, I need some advice and some guide from you in regard of my son.
Okay, what's going on?
Nothing wrong, but he is 16 years old, and all I like from him is to study more. So he just reads as much as is enough and not more than that. And he likes to spend most of his time on computer games and, chatting on the internet with his friends, and spend less time on studying, although he admits that he needs to study more.
Yes.
And he always says, I keep promise to do it from next week or next day. But he never does it. He just reads and studies very, very little.
Okay, got it. My answer to you about this is this. Most people, you and I, well, let's just say all people in general, are living into an imagined future. Strictly speaking, you and I don't know if there's any future at all. So I use that term because you're saying I'm calling you from the future, and I thought it was a good one, you know? You and I, we don't know if tomorrow will come. And for the most part, that's true for all of us, isn't it? And so the future that we're living into is an imagined one that we've made up, or that we've accepted, or that we've been adopted, or that we've been inspired by, that we've imagined as a child, or that an adult or somebody else has shown us this possibility, so we get inspired by that and say, I'm going to do that when? In the future, right? When I grow up, or when I get educated, or when I get old enough. So we're living into a future. Now that future is either exciting and turns you on and has you keep going for it, or not. Yes? Now right now, the future or the possibility that's being generated by playing on the internet and playing with computer games and whatever else it is that he's doing other than his homework is a lot more exciting. It's a lot more promising and a lot more immediate and a lot easier to obtain. Can you get that?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, sure. Right? And so, how many kids do you know that if you left a plate full of cookies on the table and a plate full of spinach and you left the room and said you have to eat all the spinach before you eat the cookies, and you came back, how many of them will not have eaten the cookies? Right?
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
They're going to eat the cookies if they're there. And the spinach, they can't figure out why they have to eat that, right? You could tell them, well, this is really good for you, but that's not going to turn them on too much, right? So one of the challenges, and look, let's give it to yourself. First of all, you've raised a son that's 16 years old. How do you guys get along?
Oh, we are friends.
Yeah.
Both of us play music, and sometimes we play together. He's
Yeah.
a very good son. He's all good. But
And you're a very...
I thought that you might give me some advice how to encourage him to spend more time on his studies.
Right, I'm getting around to that, and I'll go straight to the point. First of all, I just want to congratulate you because you're I'm sure he says, hey, my dad's great, Seems like you have a relationship with your son that is empowering. And so I would use that to leverage your authority with him, not in a disciplinarian type of way, but by creating with him inside of his own vision for himself a future that is exciting, that's compelling, that's moving and inspiring, that turns him on, that's available to him by way of the path of completing the schoolwork. For the most part, I don't know about you, when I was 16, I couldn't even imagine what that schoolwork was going to give me that I couldn't get much easier by not doing it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever created something they said, you'll get a good job. It's like, for people like me, getting a good job was not very interesting. I wanted to be a rock and roll star or something like that, right? So getting a good job was not even anything that I cared about.
Right.
The truth of the matter is that throughout my lifetime, I don't think I've really ever held a job other than for a few weeks. I've never worked for anyone else. I've owned a number of companies and businesses throughout my lifetime since I was in my teens. I've always worked for myself. So that's not about me, but it was about every time I saw something that I wanted that was very compelling, there was no stopping me to get it, you see? And the truth of the matter is, I was able to complete my high school education. The last 4 years of my high school education, I completed in 6 months. I had to go to a special school to have the privilege of being able to do that. I got to study whatever I wanted for as long as I wanted. I could study one subject for 3 months and nothing else if I wanted to. And so within 6 to 7 months, I had completed all of my high school curriculum and graduated because I was compelled, I was turned on, I was inspired. There was something I wanted from completing that work.
Right, yeah.
Right? And there was no stopping me. Do you know what I mean? I would stay after everybody else had gone and so forth because I was turned on about something that I wanted and that I was going to get if I got that education done. And so that's my coaching to you is find a way, sit down with him and really spend some time. What is it that you really love to do? What is it that turns you on, that's passionate about, that you get goosebumps when we talk about it, that if you could see yourself doing that, you'd almost be willing to do it for free because you just love it.
Yes.
And find out where he wants to go and what he wants to do and say, look, I'm your best partner in that. I'm going to support you every way I can to make sure that happens. And this is what we're going to have to do that. There's a certain number of things that's just going to have to be done to do that. But it's like creating a future, you see?
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you wanted to, go catch a fish, right? If you wanted to go fishing, but you didn't have a fishing pole or bait or a boat or any of that stuff, there would be some stuff to do, but it would all be inside of going fishing in this case, you see? So, you'd have to get the right shoes or whatever. I don't know about fishing that much, but, you'd have to plan for it. You'd have to put something in your calendar. You'd have to spend some money on something to go catch a fish. right? And the fulfillment of that would be that you're in a boat and you catch a fish, okay? But in this case, what would be the fulfillment of what it is he's doing? If there's no reason for him to do it, then it's just going to be painful to even force himself to do it.
That's right. Well, but it's very hard. It's very hard to explain that. Well, the fulfillment is the better life. You will have better income. You don't have to go through the hard work, hard jobs to get money. If you study well, you can go to the better courses in university, and of course, it's better for your future. But it's very intangible for him at this stage of life. You know.
Yes, I understand, and so that's why I'm compelling you to create a specific future with him. If I called you up and I said, "Hey, let's go traveling to some foreign countries," right? And it'll be really great, and we'll stay at great hotels, and we'll eat good food. That would be a little bit compelling, perhaps. But if I said, let's go to Paris, there's a great restaurant, it's called XYZ, and they serve this delicious dish called this, that, and the other, and you and I are going to go there together, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you have the best time in Paris, and all you got to do is buy a ticket and get yourself over there. You know, that's a little more compelling, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, because now every time I say, see, words are related to internal images. I'll say it again. Every word that you speak has some kind of an internal image and meaning and significance attached to it. So if you speak to someone in verbal images, and the more specific the better, the more specific in time and place the better, then all of a sudden, see, if you say you can go to better schools, well, what school would you like to go to? Name me 3 schools you'd like to go to. Great, okay, well, let's put them on the list. What would you like to study when you get there? What would you like to do once you're out of school? Where would you like to live? What would you like your life to look like? You can make more money. How much more money? Are you going to be a millionaire, or do you want $100,000 a year? Do you know what I mean? You can be as more specific. What would you do if you had the $1 million a year? Oh, okay, you'd live in such and such a house, and you'd have this kind of a life. So the more you can design that out so that it's visually imprinted in his neurology, the more real it's going to become and the more compelling. Do you understand?
Yes, I got it.
Far more compelling than just say this will be, because if I say you can make more money, here's $1, now you've got more money. Do you know what I mean? You'll be happier. Okay, well, here, have a beer. Now you're happier, or whatever. You know what I mean? It needs to be specific. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And it needs to feel real in order for it to be compelling for another human being. And the other thing is that if he doesn't do what he says he's going to do, there needs to be a consequence for that, you see. There's no consequences for not keeping his promise, therefore there's no real compulsion to do so.
I see, yeah.
Human beings are always moving away from pain and towards pleasure, okay?
Yeah.
So you can create with him a compelling future that calls him forward and, inspires him, but if there's no pain for not going that way, then it's kind of like, well, this is easier, you see?
Yeah.
So there needs to be a I don't want to say a negative, but if you don't put your hand on the stove, you'll never find out it's hot.
That's true, yeah.
Right? And that's a great motivation, isn't it? To get moving once you find out that your hand's on a hot stove. You're very motivated, right?
Yeah.
You want to create within whatever works in your household some consequences, if you will, some unpleasant consequences for not doing what he said he was going to do by the time he said he was going to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And he will appreciate you for that later, maybe when he's 40. Okay? I've raised a son. He's a 38-year-old architect now, and he didn't get there because I just let him do what he wanted anytime he wanted.
I see.
Yeah, he didn't like me for a very, very long time.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you very much for your time. I take your advice, and hopefully everything goes better.
All right. Thank you for calling. Thanks for watching my show. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hello, this is Gregory. Thanks for holding. You're live on the air.
Hello.
Hello, how are you this evening?
I'm fine. I just wanted to ask you. I've been watching your show right now. I have a son who's 38, 39 years old, and he's been through some ups and downs in life, both work-wise and love affair-wise. And now He's just given up totally. He doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't like anything, and he just doesn't. He said, if anyone says you go and find some kind of job or anything, he says, well, I don't like anything. He gave up his job a few years ago because he said he didn't like it. Now that he's been searching and searching for a job, now he said, well, I don't like anything to go for. Yeah. He's been an attorney, and he's worked on that, and he said he's very good at it, and yet he said, I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to find a passion in my work. I have to be able to get up and think that, wow, I'm going to work today. And of course, no such thing comes. And of course, he has applied for few jobs also, and he hasn't found anything positive. Okay. Therefore, he's sitting at home and rather depressed, and he's seen, of course, doctor also, and if nothing is working, what can he do, or what would you advise us to do in order for him to find a passion for his job?
This is perfect. You gave me the perfect lead-in to the subject I'm going to talk about today. Part of the problem with regards to you and your son is he is living at your house, yes?
Yes.
And you're paying his rent, his food. Does he have a car?
Yes.
Does he have a cell phone?
Yes.
Does he eat every day?
Yes.
Who pays for all that?
Well, I do.
Yes, of course. And so guess who is responsible for his lifestyle?
I am.
Yeah, 100%. You're financing his lifestyle. If at 38 years old you're living at your mother's house and she's paying for virtually everything that you have, and you're 100% dependent upon her, then you are what we call a mama's boy, okay, by any stretch of the imagination. Of course you're not going to be inspired by anything because you've never become a man yet.
But he was living on his own for...
So what? He's not now. I only relate to the present, you see.
Uh-huh.
I relate to the present. What's so right now is that he's living at your house, having his bills paid for how long?
Almost 2 years.
About 2 years. Okay. Well, when you get tired of financing him and say, okay, it's time for you to grow up, he's 38 years old, there's a point at which you have to put your foot down and say, I will no longer be a part of this. Now, I'm not saying that he doesn't have some unresolved issues, and that's what we're going to talk about here later on in the show. This kind of behavior requires a permissive environment. Now, if the guy down the street came and started sitting on your couch and watching TV and not getting a job and asking you what's to eat tonight, would you pay for his stuff too?
But he's not like that. He's very depressed. He's very down.
You didn't answer my question. Answer my question. Yeah, if the guy down the street came and sit down on your couch and stayed there for 2 years and expected you to pay his rent and his food and his clothing and his cell phone and all that stuff, you wouldn't do it. You already know that. You wouldn't do that. Why are you doing it for this adult man? He stopped being a kid at 18. And like you said, he went out on his own and he accomplished a few things for himself, and that's all well and good. However, he reverted back to being a child again. Our world and our society, there's a cost to that. Now, as long as you're willing to pay the cost, he has no compulsion whatsoever to complete his destiny, and in fact, you are keeping him crippled as a child. That's really all I've got to say to you about that, except I want to tell you how it got to be that way and how you can work your way out of it, okay?
Okay.
All right? So just stay tuned in. I'm going to address this whole issue in just a few minutes, okay?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for your call. Yeah. There's something that we all share as human beings. We have a common experience. We all share a certain grief. And what we are grieving is common to all of us. The first thing that we grieve is the loss of our innocence as children. There's a time when everything is perfect and we're the center of attention and we come into the world whole and complete and magical and everybody loves us, and every time we smile they all get excited, and we do nothing and they bring us food and take care of us and cuddle us and make us feel important and taken care of. And all of us have lost that at some point in our life, at least we're supposed to have. And there's a certain kind of grief about that. We grow up, we become children, we play, we have a certain kind of innocence, and then we lose that childhood. And for some of us, it's lost abruptly, especially in the case of an addictive parent, if there's a parent that's an alcoholic or a drug addict or abusive in some kind of a way, then very often we lose our sense of innocence in childhood very, very early on. And that has a severe cost later on in our life. It's like the loss of a dream. We all have some kind of a dream or something that we're imagining will happen in the future. Like I was telling the gentleman earlier, there's something bigger than our own life, some reason that you are here and that I'm here. And we all dream of that. It comes to us in our dreams or in our imagination or as an internal vision, something that we're passionate about and we cannot wait to go do. And when we're children, and then we're in that state of innocence, we all dream that we're going to have that. And someday we lose that dream. Something else that we all share in common is the loss of a loved one. Whether it's a loss of a pet, a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, eventually someone you love will leave. If it's a divorce, your first love in high school, but we've all experienced the loss of a loved one. It is normal when we're in a state of childhood and innocence and we're dreaming our dream to share our dreams with others and to build a future with other people. In our imagination, we imagine life going on forever and sharing this wonderful dream with another person. And when that person leaves, that dream leaves with them. And there's a certain grief that we all share when we experience that. For many people, they've experienced a loss of health. Just the fact of growing up, just the fact of becoming a young adult or an older adult, unless you're taking care of yourself or you're constantly maintaining a good health, eventually we'll all lose our health. And for some people, they've either sustained an injury or they've simply gotten older, or they haven't taken care of themselves, or they've got a bad diet, or a bad attitude, or a bad spiritual life, and your health may decline, and so that sense of well-being is lost. So there's a grieving that goes with that as well. And it's something that we all share. There's always been a time, even if it's just been that you've been healthy most of your life, perhaps you've gotten an illness and for a brief while and you got better, but during that time you had a sense of loss of health. And then something else that comes along with all that, and this may be getting too small to be seen on the screen, is a loss of hope. At some point, after all of these losses have piled up over and over, we look out into the future and we see some version of more of the past, different of the past, maybe a little better, maybe a little worse of the past, but ultimately we lose hope. And once we lose hope, we lose our belief in some kind of a future that is compelling, that will turn us on, that will call us forward and give a purpose and meaning to our life. And without a purpose and a meaning to our life, we live a cold and passionate life. Passionless life. And very much like the lady who I was just speaking to, her son, and perhaps in your own life, ma'am, there has been enough losses. Perhaps you've lost a loved one and or your health has declined or something. And so one of the things that we do as human beings is we look to others to fulfill our own emptiness inside, to fulfill our own lack of happiness, well-being, balance, fulfillment, joy. And very, very few people take the time to go into their own heart and to go into their own spirit and their own, through some form of spiritual practice, whether it be meditation or long walks in the woods or writing or listening to music or any number of spiritual practices. I call those spiritual practices because they awaken the soul. They bring out some interior part of you that is joyous, that is connected to all things, that has a sense of God and completion, and you find within yourself, with no one around, in your own aloneness, the ability to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be independent, to not need other people, to feel all right about yourself. But without that, most people spend their lifetime going from relationships to substances to habits of some form in an attempt to fulfill some kind of emptiness inside, in an attempt to fulfill what could have easily been fulfilled by themselves. And so instead of bringing our fulfillment and our happiness and our joy to another person in a relationship and dealing with whatever breakdowns or hurts or problems that there are, and instead of completing our own grieving process, then we go about looking for other relationships in an addictive fashion that ultimately ends up being self-destructive. And so I'm going to talk to you about the stages of healing the grieving process, okay? And the stages of grief is, number one, denial, okay? People are like, can't believe this is happening. I don't believe this is happening to me. Denial is one of the stages of the grieving process. I can't believe this is happening to me. The other one is, the next stage that people move through is called anger. It's just like angry. Why me? Why now? Why me? And they go around being angry. So you'll see people in your life, think about yourself, think first, okay? Where in your life are you actually denying some sadness or upset or disconnectedness from something that may have been happening and something that you may have lost in your life, something that somebody that may have gone away. Maybe you were in a great relationship and that went away, or somebody that you loved died or moved away, or you had a great job and that was lost. So we've all experienced some kind of loss, and then we don't express it. We don't go through this process. So you'll see people who are like sort of disconnected from reality. They're sort of floating around, not really connecting with anybody or anything. And they're still in a stage of denial. They're acting like, you ask them, how's it going? They go, fine. Or they act like everything's great and you know it's not. And the other is people who are just angry all the time. There's people who are just, whatever happens, their response to it is that they're angry because they have unresolved anger from the past that needs to get complete. The next thing that people go through is called bargaining. They bargain with themselves, and they bargain with the world, or they bargain with the people in their lives. They say to themselves, maybe if I just try harder, or maybe if I work to become better at something, or maybe if I just change myself, if I am skinnier or richer, or if I'm smarter, or if I do my hair a certain way, or if I wear a different kind of clothes. So they begin to bargain with life, bargain with themselves, trying to make themselves be different than they truly are. In other words, instead of dealing with the grief and dealing with instead of dealing with the denial and the anger, they begin now to maybe they've accepted, okay, I'm really upset about this. And so that upset, that anger motivates them to get in action and to begin to take steps to better themselves, but they still attempting to make it better by changing themselves, okay? Which is at least better. Yeah, then finally, after changing all these things about themselves, maybe they change their life, they change their clothes, or their mate, or they change their job, or they change their hair, or they change the way they look, or they got an operation and they got more of something or less of something else. They change themselves, and they see that really didn't work after all, that it's still the same, that sense of loss and emptiness is still there. So they fall into a sense of hopelessness or helplessness, like nothing I do works. And yes, of course, nothing you do works, because it's like trying to look in the mirror and comb the hair of the person in the mirror rather than combing your own hair, or washing the mirror thinking that your face will get cleaner. It's projecting onto the outside world something that is unresolved inside oneself in an attempt to make it better. And once you find out that that's truly hopeless and it's never going to work, then there's a sort of depression that people get into, and people can get stuck in any one of these areas that I'm talking about. So the reason I'm mentioning them to you is so that you can begin to see where in your life are you maybe stuck in one or several of these areas of denial, anger, bargaining, or depression. Then the final stage is acceptance. Okay, they go, that's the way it is. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. This happened, hey, mom died, okay? It was bound to happen. Or I lost that job, and I lost that job because I didn't do it as good as the other person that got it. I lost that marriage because I didn't do what was necessary to keep it together. Or that person died or moved away, that's how it is, I'm going to need to deal with that. And it is a step towards becoming an adult. In fact, this is an adult conversation. You know, for the most part, in children, when something happens that's negative or painful, they'll have one of these other responses to it. They'll just deny it. I didn't do that. That didn't happen. Or, you know, it's okay. You know, or they'll be angry, or they'll cry, or they'll try to bargain their way out of it, or they'll get really sad and cry and be you know, go suck their thumb, or sit on their mother's couch for 30 years. You know, and at some point, it's time to accept, well, you know what? That's just the way it is. That's what happened. And I'm going to do the best I can with it. Now, before that happens, or unless this acceptance stage happens, pain becomes the normal state of being in your life. You just begin to accept, well, okay, I'm just going to always have this pain in my life, and that's the way it is. That's not what I call acceptance and moving on. That's more like, the word I'm looking for is resigned. It's like being resigned. You just resign yourself to, well, okay, I'm in pain. I'm always going to be in pain. This pain is a part of my life no matter what. And so it's not acceptance, okay? So watch out that you don't just go, okay, I accept the pain, because then pain becomes the norm. And people begin to use substances, drugs, alcohol, food, tobacco, any number of things in order to make themselves feel better. Or, given that this is a relationship show and it's about your relationships, they begin to use other people like a substance to fulfill some emptiness that they have inside. And so you find yourself in codependent relationships where you look to that person as your source of happiness, fulfillment, future. You create a future with that person so as to avoid dealing with your own unresolved feelings of low self-esteem, guilt, depression, sadness, and all that. So low self-esteem, because inwardly we know that another person could never fulfill that which we are supposed to fulfill in ourselves. It becomes like an addiction. It becomes other people become our drug, if you will, of self-abuse. And we lose respect for ourselves. We see that there are happy, fulfilled, independent people in life, and I'll grant you, not that many. If you look around you, most of the people that you'll ever meet are in some kind of a codependent relationship. And if you look at the movies, the books, the poems, the love songs, mostly what you will find is that model of, I need you to complete me. I need you to complete me. So there are incomplete people, unresolved from the past, unresolved grievances from the past that have never closed the wound and healed themselves, and now they are looking to put something in from outside to fulfill themselves, rather than finding that fulfillment in themselves and bringing it into the world, bringing it into their relationships, and bringing their happiness, their health, their well-being, their wealth, their independent, self-regulating and self-disciplining essence to the relationship, and looking to cause happiness over there with the other person. Instead, we're looking for the other person to give us the happiness that we can't find within ourselves. And nothing could be further from love. I'll say that again. Looking for somebody else to give you some happiness, to give you some fulfillment that you can't generate for yourself, because you have never taken the time to know yourself, to know your needs, and to be able to fulfill your own needs in life. Nothing could be further from love. It's an addiction. And addictions require three things in order to exist. So we're going to talk about that now. Okay? Addictions require a susceptible host. That would be the addicted person. A susceptible host is somebody, well, they'll have certain characteristics. An unexamined life. No future that they are compelled and turned on about. No real plan on accomplishing that future. Perhaps certainly a lack of self-respect. They will not have high self-esteem. They won't have a really great opinion of themselves. Their opinion of themselves will be based on what other people think of them. So they will be attempting to prove something or control something in their environment and in their relationships. So a susceptible host is required for an addiction. A toxic element. Now, a toxic element could be tobacco, food, alcohol, drugs, addictive relationships, codependent relationships. Now, how can a relationship be toxic? Well, look at your own life. Have you had relationships in your own life in which every time you were with that person, rather than feeling happy, fulfilled, stronger, more powerful, more positive, more like you wanted to go out and accomplish something in your life, you felt somewhat diminished or needy, or I couldn't live without you, or like their happiness and fulfillment was almost life-threatening to you. If they got happy and went away, then somehow you would be left without. So relationships can be toxic. And in those kind of toxic relationships, you'll notice one of two things. There's always one who's 100%, 100. They're 100%. They're the master, if you will. And then there's the codependent one who is the slave. There's 0. In the case of the lady who was calling earlier, the guy, her son, her 38-year-old son who's living on the couch or living in her house and having all of his expenses paid while he can't find anything that makes him happy, is the king. He's 100%. All life is about him, and she's the 0, even though she's paying all the bills. So the codependent person will always be supporting the active, addictive person. That's what's required for addiction to exist, a permissive environment. They give them permission to be that way. And in some cases, they pay their bills and do their laundry as well. So it just depends on, how dedicated your codependent partner is. In other words, we call them the enabler. The enabler enables the addictive person to continue the addictive behavior. So in relationships, take a look and see, which one are you? I'm not saying that everybody that's watching this show is in such a relationship, but it's a safe bet that you have one of these kind of relationships in your life, whether it's with your parents, whether it's with some friends, whether it's with a loved one, whether it's with your own children. Who's the 100 and who's the 0? Who's the master and who's the slave? The master's the one whose life is going very well, thank you. Things are going along quite well. They always have a complaint that never gets resolved. In other words, they're not going to do anything about that complaint. They expect you, the enabler, to do that. The person that's the addict, if you will always have some need that needs to be fulfilled. And if only that were fulfilled, then maybe they would be better. You see, so their existence is not dependent upon getting better. Their existence is dependent upon them staying exactly the way they are, so that the enabler will keep feeding them power, feeding them money, feeding them food, taking care of them, handling their messes, cleaning up, covering for them, creating a social environment in which it seems like it's okay that they're doing what they're doing, smoothing things over, in other words, so that they can continue the behavior. So in that environment, it's no wonder that people have relationships that are not wholesome and fulfilling. Go ahead and change back to the logo, please. That's the end of that show. And so those are the things that I wanted to talk with you about today, that I wanted to bring up. I mentioned them to you not to trigger you or chastise you or have you feel bad about your relationships, but to begin to raise up some questions for you. Hello, this is Gregory. You are live on the air.
Yes, hello, Gregory.
Hi, how are you?
My question is regarding the relationship that you said one is always addicted and the other one giver. Does that change? Like one become addicted and the other one becomes the giver, and then at a certain point the other one becomes addicted?
Well, that can happen. Yes, I've seen that. Yes, sometimes they trade places.
What is that? What causes one to become addicted to the other one, and then after a couple of years or something happens, what causes for one to become one? I appreciate it. Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, good night. Well, what causes that to switch, I guess, is your question. Why do people do that? Earlier in the show, I don't know if you got that part, we all have unresolved things that we are grieving about, something that we're unhappy about, that we never learned the process of completing the past so that we could be whole and fulfilled and happy human beings, and so that we could recognize addictive relationships right from the start before we even go there and say, no, that's not really what I want in life. I want to have a relationship with a person that is whole and happy and independent of me, not codependent on me. And so because both people only know codependent relationship, sometimes they'll switch polarity back and forth. I'm leaving. No, I'll get better and better if you just don't leave. Okay, great. So then they realize, oh, I couldn't leave if I wanted to. And so they'll switch poles back and forth to it. Addictions are always about power and control, and addictive relationships is all about who's going to be the one in power. Yes, this is Gregory. You're live on the air.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
You bet. I've got a couple of minutes, so I need you to go ahead and ask your question so I can help you.
So, how you could go about cutting the cord, as they say, not to hurt the other person, to go into more depression?
Okay, so rather than answer a theoretical question, are you talking about your own relationship?
Our son.
Yeah, so how can you cut the cord without them going into more depression?
Yes, if they have been dependent on you and they have gotten used to this situation and you
Right.
don't want to cause a drastic change that they make them to slide into more depression or anything like that.
Mostly people have a difficult time doing it by themselves, and I highly recommend to anybody that's in an addictive type relationship that you do get help. It doesn't have to take 6 months or a year or something like that. It can be very quick, but it needs to, you can't just go, okay, great, you're out of here next week, you know. You might trigger a deeper depression, but you do want to empower people to get up on their feet. And there has to be a time limit to that. You have to say, look, I've come to the end of the road with this. We're going to move on from here. This is going to stop. And by this date, I'm going to do this. And then further down the road, I'm going to do this. And further on down the road, I'm going to do this. So, you know, next month, I'm not paying the cell phone anymore. And then the month after that, you're going to have to start paying rent. And then the month after that, you're going to have to find your own place and so forth. You know, you're going to have to get a job and so forth. Do you see what I'm saying? So there has to be graduating steps, but you have to be willing to actually do it. And that's why most people need some kind of a coach or consultant to go in there with them and set that up and then keep re-empowering them to do that. Also, there's an excellent organization called Al-Anon, A-L-N-O-N, that I've mentioned a number of times on this show. You can look it up online, alanon.com, and it is for the relatives of addicts.
I see.
Okay, it is for codependent people who have an addict in their life, who are in love with or have a relationship, a profound relationship with somebody who's in an addictive behavioral pattern, and because you, if you're that person, you got your own issues. You know, you got your own issues, and you got to resolve those issues so that that person can get better. And until you've resolved your issues, they're still going to stay stuck in that pattern anyhow.
Yes, and this really makes sense, but talking about this, how would you encourage an older 20-something years old to get help if they have been stubborn in the past?
Well, there's been no consequences, you see. There has to be consequences. Nobody wants to impose the hard consequences on people. You know, if somebody doesn't work, doesn't look for a job, takes addictive substances, lays around and does nothing, then it might be appropriate for them to not have a place to live or any food to eat. That's what happens in nature. Do you see? You know, if you're a grown man and you're not working and producing something in the world unless you have a trust account or something, then you're a toxic to society, and you're a leech on the well-being of the people who are supporting you. So you know, as long as you're okay to allow that and keep paying for it, then okay. But if you're done with that, truly done with that, then it's time to take some steps. And like I said, I would really point you in the direction of this Al-Anon, because they've been around for 20, 30 years, and that's all they do is teach people how to help the addicts in their life get the hell off the couch and out in the world and stop taking whatever it is they're taking and doing whatever they're doing. At least they get themselves free from that.
Thank you so
Okay?
much for all the information. Thank you very much.
All right, I'm happy to help, and thank you for calling and for watching my show.
Have a great program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, my name is Gregory Morgan. You've been watching Love Talk. Thank you for watching the show today. My highest desire is that this is helpful and that it assists you in having a more powerful, fulfilling life, and that you leave a legacy of love for future generations. I'll see you next week here on Love Talk.
Welcome to the Embrace Growth app. There's a new way to communicate and join in. Create your free account online and sign into the app. Manage your profile on the go and choose between English or Farsi. Register for events and schedule appointments more easily than ever. Stream audio, video, and download books all over Wi-Fi or cellular. Sign up for workshops and seminars right on your phone. And access your audio and video library in the palm of your hand. Take your favorite lessons from Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan with you. Download it today on the App Store. A haven for the weary soul. A source of inspiration and community. Redesigned to bring you meaningful experiences and unforgettable events. We are a worldwide community of vibrant individuals, displayed in the people who are a part of it, from many nations, backgrounds, and beliefs. Through powerful outreach programs, the struggles of everyday life are confronted and conquered, transforming those who participate into the best versions of themselves. One-on-one sessions are available to keep you headed in the right direction, coupled with the best resources to remind you how to live, whether at home or elsewhere. Programs designed for men, providing the building blocks of maturity, commitment, integrity, and leadership, paving the way for productive and fulfilling manhood. Beyond an understanding of masculine leadership is its application in daily life and development into something truly unique. Exclusive training for women, encouraging growth and empowerment through an acceptance of their true identities, redefining interactions, and changing the viewpoint through which life is seen. Embracing the woman within and accessing facets of your personality hidden beneath the surface. Showing our youth the value of integrity and reliability by creating an indwelling desire to succeed with honor, basing the future on a solid foundation of ideals that will guide them through life, leading by example, and showing others how to clearly convey their thoughts in a compelling way, creating a culture of mature leaders who can help others achieve self-confidence and their goals. Real people and real lives are changed for the better. With every event, more are touched and come to an understanding of their place in this world and their community. Embrace Growth is run by a passionate team and led by the diligence and inspiration of Dr. Azita Sayan and Mr. Gregory Morgan, who consistently teach life lessons based on what works, rather than the passing fads of the times.